Hey everybody, thank you so much for joining us for the Customizing Culture podcast. I'm your host, Jared Barbosa, and today I have a very, very special guest. 8 years ago, he interviewed me, and now the tables have finally turned, and I'm interviewing him. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome President and founder of Heat Press Nation, Jimmy Lin.
Thanks, Jared. I appreciate you having me on this podcast today.
I am very, very excited to have you on. I have tons of hard-hitting questions for you. No, I'm just kidding. No, honestly, like when we first started the podcast, you were always on our list of people to bring on the podcast, and now we finally got you. And I'm excited. So I'll tell you this: like as a heat press nerd, I love heat presses, right? I love all things heat presses, and I love the story of Heat Press Nation because I like knowing where things come from, and I feel like I already know it because I know you.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
Been here for a while. But I think it's going to be really fun for our viewers and our guests to finally get the real, true life story of Heat Press Nation. So thank you again for taking the time.
No, I appreciate it. I think by my own personal nature, I like to stay a little bit behind the scenes. And so you pushed me a little bit into this, and I appreciate you doing so because I think it's about time.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you staying behind the scenes because that's the only reason why I have a job.
Cool.
So yeah, it's funny. There's been a few times where I ran into people at like a trade show or something like that, and they're like, "Wow, so you're the owner of Heat Press Nation?" And I'm like, "Oh no, wrong guy. You got the wrong guy." Because just by sake of me being on camera,
Sure.
they think that, which is I think is really funny.
That is pretty cool, isn't it?
But yeah. So. All right, so let's dive into. Well, first of all, I feel like I already introduced you, but I don't know if there's anything you want to add to like the introduction to the people.
I'm Jimmy Lin. I'm the president and founder of Heat Press Nation. We have been in business for 15 years now.
Yes.
And when I reflect back on that 15 years, it's it's been an exciting journey. It's been a fulfilling journey. It's been in so many different aspects. Such a wonderful and amazing and unique experience for me. And so I feel very blessed to be in this position and having the privilege of leading the team that we have. I love it. And so, right?
Well, I love it too. 8 years, by the way. 8 years here. Wouldn't still be if I didn't love it.
So fast.
Oh my gosh. It flies. It really does feel like I just interviewed with you, by the way. Like time really flies. But let's go back a little further than that.
Okay.
Let's go back kind of to the beginning because you come from an entrepreneurial family.
Sure.
Right? Your parents own a business. Your brother owns his own business. Did you always like want to be a businessman? Did you always want to kind of own your own thing, do your own thing?
Funny enough, yes and no, and a little bit undecided until I decided.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. My parents were entrepreneurs and business owners all the way through growing up. And so, naturally, a lot of our customers obviously relate to this because they themselves are business owners.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stress. There's a lot of struggle. There's a lot of hours involved in the entrepreneurial journey. And my parents, my goodness, they used to work consistently because they were in the restaurant business, 7 days a week, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. every day, no breaks. I think a lot of that has to do with the entrepreneurial journey, one, but also the immigrant journey, two, as well. Because I'm second generation, right? They're first. And so when you come to a new country with really nothing, you're forced into a position where they have to work, frankly, just work their tails off to make it.
Yeah, it's
right?
really make or break.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, it really is. And so I guess I didn't know if that journey was right for me until I decided to do so. Not actually with this business, the previous business that I had started. Because you don't know what I obviously witnessed it very much so with my parents growing up, but you don't really know the adventure that you're getting into until you actually get into it, right?
Can you tell us a little bit about that first business? Like,
sure.
I feel like it's like asking my dad about his ex-girlfriend before he met my mom. Like, please tell us about this first business.
Sure. I was in college at the time. I was an undergrad at USC, Fight on Trojans. And my good friend at the time was his family was in the jewelry business, right? Wholesale jewelry, 14 karat gold jewelry. And so, naturally, as a student without a lot of money, you try to find opportunities where you can kind of leverage structures and places where you can kind of invest where you can, but avoid the additional investment where you potentially can't. And so what we did was we started an e-commerce side of the wholesale jewelry business. And what we would do is we launched the website, we put the online marketing on top of it. Me and him were the customer service. Me and him were the distribution. Me and him were sales. And so we used to, in between classes, we would make these sales. And then after the sale, thankfully, we were in downtown LA, and the jewelry district is also in downtown LA. And so what we would do is run up to the jewelry district, in between classes, and then package it up and ship it then after.
Were you transporting expensive, how would you move it? How would you get from there to the post office? Did you get robbed? I don't know. I think of downtown LA as being kind of scary. So I'm like, how did that work?
I don't know. I think that's over embellished a little
okay.
bit. Right?
Okay.
That was a fun journey for both me and him. Unfortunately, that business wasn't successful. I think there's a lot of different factors in that. Obviously, I was a dedicated student at the time, and so this was really in between. But also the market value. So fine jewelry, 14 karat gold in this case, is pegged to the gold commodity price. And I remember at the time that the commodity price skyrocketed as soon as we started for whatever reason. And so the ounce of gold would go up on the raw material side, but at the retail side, it doesn't go up immediately like the commodity price does. And so essentially what happened was we would get squeezed. We were getting squeezed from the very beginning up until we were working with very minimal margin, because at the end of the day, you're still competing against the retail competition that you have out there. So you can't raise your prices alongside the cost basis of that product. Anyway, I feel like that business gave me a lot of lessons. And so ultimately, yes, the business was a failure. And I like to see a lot of projects this way. And I encourage our customers to think of their projects this way, that not every shot you take is going to be successful.
Yeah.
Right. But if you have the right attitude post success or non-success, it really, everything, it's a little bit cliche, right? But everything's a learning lesson.
Yeah. Oh, right? for sure. I feel like in the time that I worked here, I've probably started 3 businesses.
Sure.
On the side, t-shirts, of course, being one of them. And yeah, if you guys have been following the podcast, you don't want to hear me tell the story again. But yeah, I shut down my side quests probably about 2 years ago now.
Right.
And it's a great lesson.
Yep.
And I feel like I'm much more prepared for the next, for me, side business, that I launch. But yeah, definitely more prepared. What would you say was your biggest lesson that you learned from that whole ordeal with the jewelry business?
I feel like my biggest lesson was you have to pick your product very carefully. You have to pick your customer very carefully. And the reason I say that is, with 14 karat gold jewelry, we were selling rings, earrings, chains, etc. And again, that was by virtue of my business partner, his family being in that business.
So,
right?
So did you pick that business because it was accessible?
Bingo.
Oh, okay.
It was accessible, but I found myself, talking to customers and having these discussions in and around 14 karat gold jewelry, which frankly, I never really had an interest in, right? And so I never really got engaged the way that I should be engaged as a business owner. And so when this business came to fruition, I really chose very, very carefully as to what market I was going to enter.
How the heck did you pick heat presses? And I asked that when I first interviewed here, the night before my interview, sure. I Googled, what the heck? What is this junk?
Yeah.
Because I knew zero, beyond zero about it. And so then I like went through the website because I like to be prepared for
Sure.
even back then interviewing for a job.
Sure.
So that way, so you know, and so I'm like, I'm just gonna okay, they get hot, cool. Like I feel like I went in really unprepared for that interview because it was so foreign to me.
Yep.
The concept of a heat press was so foreign to me. It's not in the mainstream. You don't know what it is unless you need to know what it is.
Right. Right.
So like, how did you skip pretty much every other? Like, why didn't you start a used car lot?
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Like,
Exactly.
I had like why heat presses?
I think you know me by now that I'm very data driven. And
Yes,
so by
yes.
my nature, what I did was I spent days and days, weeks and weeks. I think, really, if I remember correctly, the time period when it was a feasibility test all the way up to launch, maybe 2.5 months, where I was just studying product after product after product, category after category after category, until I landed on heat presses. And I remember thinking about this very carefully as to, wow. And, going back to the lesson learned on the jewelry side, not only was I not really interested in the product, but I didn't really relate to the customer as well because I'm not a jewelry guy.
I've never seen you wear gold jewelry before.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But with heat presses, I thought to myself, wow, not only is the product cool, right? And we can talk about that a little bit later, right? The analogy of the heat press to other categories like cars, for example.
Yeah.
But also the customer. We're serving entrepreneurs, t-shirt businesses. This is the type of business that has a low barrier of entry and has the potential to be scaled significantly. We've seen that from a lot of our customers.
Yes.
And so not only was I interested in the product, I thought it was inherently cool, right? But also I was interested in the potential of all the conversations that I would be having with these customers because I think our philosophy here in how do we work with our customers? How do we view our customers? The way that we should see things is, hey, the conversations that we have with the customers, they're so important because we have the power to educate them as deep as humanly possible on our side, right? And as much as we're able to feed them both in all of your efforts, your video work, your master classes, your training sessions, and then all of our sales people.
The sales staff is so huge here.
Bingo.
I think that's where I started.
Yep.
So I feel like I always have like a chair down there.
Yeah. You pick up whenever we need the need down there, and so we appreciate that.
I have. I think it's been a few months since my last phone call.
Sure.
But in 8 years, I was up until pretty much this year, I was regularly taking phone calls.
Yeah.
And which is funny because up until maybe a few years ago, I saw you taking phone calls.
Right.
There was a Black Friday where we were laughing because you were just hammering in your office and you were just like all the calls.
I
thought that was so, to me, it was a combination of, it was funny.
Yeah.
But it was inspiring because I was like, oh man, because I would complain to like, all these calls, what the heck? Like, stop calling us. And then I saw you taking calls and I was like, okay, if the boss man can take calls, okay, all right.
Because ultimately we really truly have the power to increase the likelihood of success for our customers' entrepreneurial journeys.
Yeah.
I really mean that because that's why we never track stats of number of calls taken, for example.
Which blew my mind when I started here. So for those of you who don't know, I started in the call center here at Heat Press Nation. I interviewed with you for the call center position because that's what I knew.
Yep.
And so I didn't come to this company because I thought heat presses were cool.
Mm-hmm.
I literally just needed a job. So I started in the call center, and when you told me that, I thought, this is a weird company. Like, what? Because I'd worked in a bunch of call centers.
Right.
Like, who doesn't track calls taken, like time spent on calls? I remember you told me like, yeah, you could take as much time as you need with a customer. And I was like, what?
Yes.
In all my previous jobs, they were like, you have 2 minutes to get off that call.
Yep.
Like, how do you serve somebody in 2 minutes?
I just feel like that type of stat tracking that companies unfortunately do, it's so backwards.
Yes, it really is. Yeah.
Because the more time you spend with a customer, the more depth you can get into the conversation with.
Yeah.
And they're better off, we're better off, everyone's better off. And so why not?
Yeah. Why wouldn't you? Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah. Okay, now before we move on to kind of the next segment, I have to ask again, I got to find out about your exes, man. Like, what other products were in the running when you're researching heat presses? Like,
Ooh.
could we have been, Kitchen Knife Nation? I don't know. What was in the
Man,
running?
I can't remember the full list, but I do remember one of the criteria was business customers, entrepreneur customers.
Nice.
And so I remember massage tables, because being a masseuse is an industry too. It's a small business that customers get into, right? Grooming tables as well.
Oh, for like animals? Like
animals. Because pet grooming is a significant industry as well.
Yep.
Tattoo kits. It's kind of the artsy, but also entrepreneurial.
Yeah. There's definitely a theme there of like the entrepreneur, kind of even solopreneur,
right?
Like literally being able to start from like square one, I'm my own boss, like type thing.
It's funny I can only remember 3 right now because that list was huge.
Oh, really? Okay,
yes.
So you definitely did your homework back
then. For sure.
When you're making decisions, are you usually like taking the more pragmatic approach, or are you like a trust your gut guy? Like in the end, like what made it heat presses? Was it a gut, or was it no? I did my research.
I like to think of myself as a pragmatic player, right? Okay. As best as I'm able to, but then at the same time, that last decision almost has to be a gut decision, because in any entrepreneurial journey, you have to take a leap of faith, right? There's just no way of knowing with certainty if one category, one product, one channel, one promotion, or whatever is going to be successful. And so, I feel like I can be very pragmatic in the due diligence required to get to where we need to be. But then ultimately a decision has to be made. And I think by nature, that has to be a gut decision.
That's okay.
Right?
So do all the research you possibly can and save the gut for that last little 1% maybe?
It's funny. I guess my answer to your question is yes.
Nice. So you start HPN, and like a lot of other famous entrepreneurs, like Steve Jobs will say, you started in your parents' garage.
Yeah.
Which again, I love that aspect of it. I just think it's really cool. What was it like back then? Like, were they cool? Because they're entrepreneurs, so they hopefully get it.
Yeah.
Were they cool with it, or how did that go down?
Super cool with it. I frankly have enjoyed every single step of this journey. At this point, we have multiple warehouses. We have so many employees. Yeah. Like the sophistication of our business is, to me, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Right. But even back then, I enjoyed that stage because it's a hustle. Right. Yeah. Even back then, even now, because you see the different journeys that our customers are on as well. Mm-hmm. Right. And a lot of our customers are at that stage currently.
Yeah.
And so you got to commend them because I know it's a lot of work, right? I was taking calls. I remember, thankfully, we had an extra room in the house that was empty. And so I set up my desk there. I set up a phone. I did all that. And then I would take calls from 6 a.m. to, I think, 3 or 4 p.m. And remember, FedEx picks up at 5 or 6.
Oh, man.
Right? And so at that stage, you don't have a huge amount of orders. It would almost be a game to me, right? At 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, I'm like, okay, it's done. All right, go. And then I'd run down to the garage and you're just cranking, right? Ship. And it's kind of a game as to, okay, I talk to these folks in the morning, in the early afternoon. How long can I fulfill this obligation before I have to force myself to stop? And then pivot myself to the distribution shipping side so I can get those orders out that same day. Yeah. And I think I'm proud to say that most of the time I was successful. Most days I was successful in getting all the orders out. But then some days, obviously, you're like, and then obviously those are the guys that we work on first thing the next day. Right?
Yeah.
So it was fun.
Good memories.
I loved it. Great memories. All right.
In the very beginning, you didn't have your own line of heat presses, right? There was no HPN heat presses.
Right.
But then, not long later, of course, you start developing your own line to offer heat presses. I remember we're at a trade show one time. It's actually a conference, a crafting conference. And then you had gone with us to that trip, and you're demoing a heat press. And I thought I knew how to demo a heat press. till I saw you demo a heat press.
Sure.
And you have such a deep intrinsic knowledge of these machines. Why? Because not every CEO knows what every nut and bolt is on a machine.
Sure.
Is developing the heat press is something that's like near and dear to you, or?
I feel like a heat press, the best analogy that you can give to what a heat press really is a car.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always been a car guy. So I don't know if the interest in that leads into my interest for heat presses, but really when you take a look at a heat press, it's the culmination of all the components within a heat press, just like a car, right? For example, in a vehicle, you have the motor, you have the transmission, you have the suspension, you have the body work, you have the paint work, you have the interior components. That's a lot of different components that they're putting into that vehicle. And at the end of the day, you know, you take a look at car manufacturers and their philosophy on how they manufacture a car. Some folks, they'll just slam it together and then they'll provide it at the lowest price, and that's kind of their strategy. But some folks, they really get into the minutia of every little piece, every little component, in making sure that they put as much importance into the picture of what a car is as they do into the switch or the handle or the, you know, all these little pieces, because, you know, that is your day-to-day experience. It's funny because I used to say this when I was taking customer calls, right? Is that any heat press will get you from point A to point B, just like any car will get you from point A to point B. Right? But it's how much style you want to get into there, how much comfort you want to get there in, how much reliability you want to get in there with. Like, do you want to worry if you're doing a, you know, LA to Las Vegas trip, and do you really want the stress of worrying if your car is going to make it there? Right. And so that's very similar to a heat press. You know, when you talk about engines and transmissions and suspensions, when you take a look at it on the heat press side of things, right, that's the heating element, the computer gauge, the relay, the switch, the fuse, the threaded rod. Right.
And it's kind of like a chain. Like, it's only as strong as the weakest link.
Yep. You're right.
Yeah.
And so that always has interested me deeply. And so when we started manufacturing our own machines, you take a look at each component very carefully, right? And if you do, your reliability rate increases significantally, right? Because we've seen, frankly, I won't name them, but models out there.
I would love to name them.
No, it's okay.
That's how you know Jimmy's nicer than me, guys.
Yeah. But, you know, they get a bad rep because the manufacturing philosophy they have into their machines, that leads into a customer that's right in the middle of a 100 t-shirt run business, run project, and then all of a sudden their heat press fails.
Yeah,
that's a failure on the manufacturer's part.
Yeah, and we actually got to take apart some of those heat presses, right? And you could just see where the corners were cut.
Right.
Like, you could just see where they saved money.
Right.
It's, for a long time I wondered, like, why do we have a $400 press and they have a $200? And then once we finally opened it up, I was like, oh, $5, $10, $20. Like, the numbers just start adding up, and you're like, oh, they saved here, and there, and it's just like, oh man.
Yep. And so, I think managing the value proposition of our heat presses is really important, because we want to be able to give customers as good a quality as humanly possible and at as competitive a price as possible. And so the value of this is higher than the cost of this, right? But it does come at a cost. We're not going to be the cheapest heat press out there because of that philosophy.
That's another thing that, again, I hear and I'm like, whoa, wait a second. The first time I heard you say, like, we're not out to make the cheapest heat press. Yeah. I was like, but why?
Right.
And that's such a good explanation of it is, you know, who wants to be first of all, who wants to be the cheapest of anything?
Right.
But second of all, like, there's definitely like reputations associated with these, we'll just call them bargain brands.
Yep. Yeah.
that I'm glad I don't have to, as the guy on camera, I'm glad I don't have to rep those brands. Like,
Right.
to be totally honest.
At the end of the day, we very much have a responsibility to our customers.
Yeah.
We have a promise that we've made on the front end. And yeah, our products admittedly aren't going to be perfect at every turn, right? But we can reduce, just like a car. Car's, again, a perfect example. You know, there's so many components that go into these machines. There's so many components that go into these cars. Unfortunately, there is a failure rate. But I would say that ours is dramatically lower than others.
Now, you said this a little earlier, that we're a business that supports other businesses. Our heat presses, well, yes, they go to some hobbyists and just people who just want to have a good time. They're mostly going into businesses. Like, small businesses don't usually have anybody in their corner. Why was it important for you to throw your company behind your customers?
We've always thought of things in what's right for the long term. Yeah, you can do things that'll make a few bucks on the short term, but then are you doing it for the long-term health of the business? And by nature, our customers' businesses, long-term viability and strength, really, as a result of that. And realistically speaking, you know, you have other heat presses and equipment products that are sold in channels like Amazon, for example. And yeah, there's products on there that are good, right? But then the reality is a lot of what we think about is, yeah, our products can be sold in a traditional sense in terms of, okay, hey, money in, product out, right?
Yeah.
But then the reason why we're so successful as long as we have been, and hopefully far into the future, is because we don't just sell widget products.
Right.
We don't just sell pencils and erasers and standard stuff that are very straightforward. We sell product that does require a significant education, right? In order to be successful with our products. And so, you know, obviously that comes with front-end education, which you're so darn good at, but also it comes with back-end support. When you got an issue, when your transfers aren't sticking, or you have a scorch mark on your shirt, or your customers come back and your transfers are peeling, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? Our customers need someone that has the depth of experience that we have, because we're not only working with that customer, we're working with tens of thousands of other customers. And so from there, we collect data from all of those customers. And while that customer may be experiencing this problem for the very first time, we've seen this issue 1,000 times before. Like, oh, okay, if you're doing this, then do this.
Yeah.
I think it's so important for us to be able to share that experience, which really an organization like us are the only ones that will have.
Yeah.
Right? Because we collect it, we understand it, and then we can basically then transfer that knowledge forward for the customers that rely on us for their success, and vice versa. Right?
Yeah. What honestly, what this is it's me getting a chance to nerd out a little bit.
Sure.
Answer some questions that have actually been bugging me for a long time. Some of these questions I know the answer to. Like, I knew you went to USC.
Yeah.
You guys didn't. I did. But then a lot of these questions, like, for me, it's just really fascinating to just know. Again, as a heat press nerd, it's not just that I work here, but like I love knowing how the sausage is made. I love knowing what goes into a product that I've used for the past 8 years.
Right.
I mean, you know, these guys know. I'll say it again. Like, I threw it was probably like my second or third paycheck. I threw almost the whole thing back at the company to get my own gear, because I was hooked on something that I could make with my hands.
Right.
'Cause I'm a creative person.
Yep.
That I not only could I create with my hands, I could make money.
Yep.
My band, we immediately started making our own merch. I started making my band's merch, with our stuff. And so, yeah, it's really cool for me, just not even as an employee, but as somebody who enjoys heat presses and manufacturing and team building. Yeah. I know we have so many viewers and listeners who have their own businesses, who there's often not a lot of templates.
Yep.
to follow. And now thankfully in our space, there's lots of cool influencers, but successful ones who have built their own businesses, because you could learn how to build your own YouTube channel.
Sure.
How do you scale your own business? So I'm positive that this information is important, because, yes, we're talking about our free lifetime tech support, but really what we're talking about is how can you be more customer centric?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I guess I'll kind of go into a question like that. When you started the business, like, was it your goal to always be customer centric, or is that something you kind of learned along the way? Were there hiccups getting to that point?
I don't know. I feel like really I think we're talking about business philosophies at this point.
Yes.
Like really what makes us who we are. And if you really dial into it, that has to do with the philosophy and how a business should be run, right? And I feel like even on the hiring front, we try to hire good people.
Yeah.
Right? We try to hire folks that we know are going to do the right thing at the right time, whether someone's looking at you or not, And I think that has to do with how we just operate as a whole, because, I don't know, we went into this business thinking about, should we be customer centric or not? That really isn't the question. The question is, what's right? I think it's just pretty straightforward, right?
It's just how to do good ethical business.
Yeah.
Do you think it's possible to do good ethical business and not be customer centric, or is that just the destination? If you're a good ethical business, is that just the destination?
For our business, it is.
Okay.
You can say there's so many different business models out there. And, for example, if you're a business that's selling a product that is a standard widget product that doesn't require a lot of hand-holding, and the customer's value is in the price point, and they need it as cheaply as possible, then that business's responsibility is to provide that value that the customer is deeply looking for, which is price point driven. And if that's the case, then that company, to be able to support the value that the customer is looking for, they can't invest in the support infrastructure required. Otherwise, they would be going against that.
Got it.
Right?
Got it. Somebody who needs to sell a cheap pencil.
Bingo.
Got it.
Yep.
What's one thing that you wish every customer could take away from their experience with Heat Press Nation? Besides an expensive heat press. No.
Yeah. I don't know. I want folks to feel like our team deeply supports their endeavors, right?
Yeah.
In the right way, right? Nothing's going to be in business. There's risk. There's inherent risk in any business, right? Including our customers' businesses.
Yeah.
And so we in no way, shape, or form can promise perfection. We can't promise that.
Can't promise their success.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But what we can do is say, hey, whatever we can do for you to support you, we will. And if you're smart about the strategies that you take and the markets that you pursue and the way that you conduct your business, with our support as much as we're able to provide, let's just try to increase your likelihood of success as much as possible. That's really all we can do, right?
Yeah.
We've seen it.
So well put. Yes.
We've seen a ton of our customers be so successful and scale. And it's like, go you. It's cool. It's super cool.
It's so exciting when we see people comment like, hey, I finally started my business. I'm in my 4th year. Because honestly, if your business makes it past 1 year, that's a huge accomplishment.
Right.
So people, I'm in my 4th year. I've been doing this 10 years. Oh, I started with Heat Press Nation from the beginning. And I was like, oh, they're probably one of the first presses. That's exciting to me.
What I want our customers all, because we've talked about our own private label heat presses, right? Our own heat presses. But also we sell so many other brands.
Yes.
Caesar, Hotronics, DTF Station, Epson now, Sawgrass. What I also want customers to understand too is that we study these products and these brands and even the ethics behind those brands as well very deeply, right?
Yep.
And so the value we provide in that aspect of the business is not just a stamp of approval that like, hey, these guys, their product's legit, their business is legit,
Yes.
and we trust these brands that we distribute and resell to our customers, for our customers, but also that in addition to the stamp of approval, we feel confident enough in this product and our own understanding and knowledge of these products that we're going to support you as well in those products, because all the products that we carry, quite frankly, there's a learning curve there.
Yeah.
It's just how it is, right?
Yeah.
And so I think, I don't know, that's the holistic view of the business, right? I don't know, as much as I'm able to give in this.
I love being able to look at it in a holistic view. I think when you start like piecemealing your customer and like, oh, well, we're just going to focus on one thing, you can miss everything else.
Sure.
It's really great. The heat press industry today, heat press industry is kind of like really small. Really, we're in the garment decoration industry.
Yeah.
We're in the creative industry,
Mm-hmm.
which is much different now than it was 15 years ago when you first started.
Yep.
Because you have a unique perspective of having been very close and present and hands-on throughout the whole 15-year span.
Mm-hmm.
What major differences are you seeing like today? Like kind of like give us a little state of the industry. Like what's so different today than 15 years ago?
Ooh.
Especially for our customers.
I think over time, what you see, and I think this parallels a lot of categories actually, is that in the beginning, customers are so price centric that a lot of times the cheapest product wins, right? But what I've definitely seen in our industry, and hopefully this continues because really this is the way, is quality is king.
Yeah.
Right? And so you've seen it not only in the heat press category, but also the vinyl category, the vinyl cutter category, and the DTF printer categories, sublimation printer category. Over time, the quality of these products and the reliability of these products have significantly improved.
Mm-hmm.
And I foresee that into the future. I think the hype right now is DTF printers.
Oh yeah.
I don't want to say it's a hype.
That's a big wave.
It's not just hype, because I think that's not giving the credit that it deserves.
Hype has kind of an empty connotation to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree, because I think there's definitely significant value in the quality of DTF prints, what you're able to produce. Right? What you're able to produce with them, the longevity of those transfers, the ease of getting into it. And I think just 2 years ago, the state of DTF printers, it was the quality aspect.
Yeah.
It wasn't great. It was scary, quite frankly, right? And, I think because we've had these discussions, that we didn't want to get into that category until we felt confident in that. Because, again, our customers rely on us to do this the right way.
Right. Yep.
Right? And so we waited and just now we feel, okay, the technology has caught up to expectations. Yeah. And so I'm excited about that category now because of that. But you could say that I've felt that way about all these categories that we've served over time, that it starts off, we're like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Right? And then I think technology in general just gets better and better and better.
Yeah.
And I think it's our responsibility to evaluate that very carefully and then get into that product and introduce it to our customers at the right time in that product life cycle. Yeah. Right.
What would you say are some of the more positive changes that you've seen around the industry? Maybe it's a product, or maybe it's like an attitude towards things.
I think education, I think, is an important one.
Yes. There's way more YouTube channels now than when I started 8 years ago.
Yes.
And there's that, and they're good too.
Yep.
So yes, actually that is pretty huge.
I honestly feel like, man, I don't want to come off the wrong way in saying this, that we led the way in that.
You see, I want to be really humble and not agree with you. So just give me this, guys. Let me not agree with him right now.
Yeah. No, but I think a lot of it has to do with you. We've done so many videos over time. We've done so much front-end education. We've set the standard. We've set the benchmark, what our customers in this industry expects. And now you see a lot of our competitors following that lead. And I think that's great. That's okay. Because at the end of the day, if we're all thinking in this philosophy, the likelihood of success just increases significantly.
Yes.
Because the customer has so many more resources than just, because, you know, just like any business, we're resource constrained. And so we can only do so much. We can do it as fast as we can, as hard as we can. But then if everyone has started to have this philosophy, I think it's a win-win, quite frankly.
I got to sit down with Joe from Caesar, who wouldn't be technically considered competition other than the fact that like we were both faces of the channels. And I was telling him that like I would see his videos and then I would want to do something cool. And then he was saying he would see our videos and then he wanted to up his game. And so we were both just kind of like, whether we realized it or not, just like encouraging each other and just like, not, I don't want to say pressuring, but like, just like we both were seeing the other guy and wanted to do better work. Yeah. Not even beat and get more views, just do better work, which I think is really
And
unique.
it's funny, they're a partner of ours.
Yeah.
You know, he asked me, I think it was him or it might have been him that reached out to me. He says, "Hey, can we get your camera set up? Can you tell us what camera you use, the lighting you use, et cetera, et cetera?" And I responded back to him and I said, "Hey, I would love to share this with you, but I would love it even more if you guys had a unique setup that's different than ours." Because that way the customer has different perspective and they see the different sets in a different light. It's not necessarily a good thing that everyone looks and feels the same.
Yes.
Right?
I agree.
And so technically they're partners of ours. We absolutely love them, as you know, right?
Patrick now.
Yeah. Patrick now. Joanna and I have a great relationship.
I love Patrick. I love you, Patrick.
And so on one hand, I would love to share that detail, but the other hand, you still have to go back. Hey, let's be customer centric. Let's try to take different angles about this. Let's try to be different. Let's try to, that way there's, not every customer is going to connect with that education style. So let's vary things up a little bit.
Yeah.
Right.
So Heat Press Nation started 2009, still going strong here in 2024.
Yep.
Do you think somebody, and putting yourself in the shoes of our customer, someone starting a t-shirt business with a heat press, right? Do you think somebody starting a t-shirt heat press business has a bigger advantage today in 2024 than they would have had back in 2009? Do you think they would have been more successful had they started back then, or do you think they'd be more successful now?
Now.
Yeah?
I mean, think about all the transfer types that they have at their disposal now.
That's so true.
Back in 2009, heat transfer vinyl really wasn't in play yet. It was really just heat transfer paper and screen print transfers, maybe a little bit of sublimation, but that sublimation hadn't even gotten its stride yet because there was still ink clogging issues back then, right? But now, screen print transfers, DTF transfers, DTG is in play. Sublimation, super reliable sublimation printers are in play. Even heat transfer paper, the old reliable heat transfer paper, the quality of those transfers are excellent right now. White toner transfers.
Yeah.
And so back then, our customers were competing with big screen print shops that are able to produce volume, right? But now, and the quality is very good there. So back in 2009, the heat press guy, can they really compete with those guys? There has to be a good angle there, right? Yeah. But now, when a customer gets a t-shirt and it comes from a screen print guy or a DTG guy or whatever versus a simple heat press guy, I could argue very easily that the likelihood of the customer, the end user of that t-shirt, knowing who produced it and being able to gauge quality of one transfer or one transfer type versus the other, screen print versus heat press,
Yeah.
they wouldn't be able to tell.
Yeah.
The quality is excellent now. And because the nature of heat presses are what they are in allowing for just-in-time inventory, not stocking too heavily on this screen or that ink or this ink or that ink, and just producing what's needed for that specific customer,
Yeah.
then that means their investment costs are dramatically lower, and then their risk is significantly lower, right? Because again, we want our customers to be successful, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of that success, and as you know, we don't oversell our customers. We don't want to.
Nope.
Right?
Right.
And so if we don't oversell our customers, we get them into the product, the solution that's right for their specific circumstance, their volume circumstance, et cetera, their likelihood of success is significantly higher, and the quality of the transfers is excellent, right? And so is the state of the industry and the customer better now than before? Yes, for sure. For sure, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think about people who say like, oh, the heat press market is so oversaturated. Everyone has a heat press now. Don't bother buying one. Everyone has one. Like, what are your thoughts on that mentality?
I don't know. I feel like, there hasn't been a better time than now where people are expressing themselves in custom t-shirts, and the art form of the print is bigger than it's ever been.
Yeah.
Right. But besides that, at the end of the day, our customers are nationwide, right? And there's so many of these pocket communities where not only do brands flourish, but also folks that print for their local sports teams or their local schools or their local organizations and families with reunions and all the stuff that our customers use our products for. I think the whole old saying that the riches are in niches.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's absolutely true in our case and the customer's case, because as long as you find the right angle, you've seen it.
Oh, yeah.
You've seen it with all the customers that we watch fly.
Yeah.
You can tell when they go after a specific market and they're hyper-focused on that market, that's when they win.
My best years, probably like 2-3 year stretch of my side business was when I was selling mugs by the case to churches and nonprofits.
Yep.
And that's all who I was doing. And I love those customers.
Yep.
Because they always had their artwork ready.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah. But so to that point, I agree with that 100% because I literally live that.
People appreciate focus.
Yeah.
That's just how it is. If you're focused on hats, you're focused on hats. You're focused on mugs. You're focused on mugs. You're focused on churches, even better.
Yeah.
It's like finding a doctor, if you will.
Yeah.
If you have generalist doctors, which are wonderful. They're amazing. That profession is amazing. But also, if you have a very specific issue, then you want a person that's hyper focused on that specific issue to work on you.
Yeah.
Right. So I think it's the same thing in so many different categories.
That's so good. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Now I've always been impressed, and this is not me sucking up, I promise.
Okay.
I won't say impressed. I won't use that word. I'll say I've been fascinated by like your insight and your ability to forecast.
Sure.
So I'm gonna ask you to tap into your crystal ball, man.
Okay.
Where do you think the industry is going? Because right now the DTF wave is still high. It's still hot.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think is next? Do you think we're all gonna be riding this DTF wave for a little bit? Like,
I think the DTF wave still has legs.
Yeah.
Right. It's gone up. It'll stay up for some time because I don't think folks have necessarily grasped the true power of DTF yet. Right. You have all those screen print shops. You have all these customers that come in. They want limited runs, or they want, so many different colors. And those guys can't do that just by nature of screen print.
Especially on smaller quantities.
Right.
Yeah.
You have all of those folks that aren't necessarily ready for a DTF printer because of the run rate of those, or the need to run those printers, right? And make sure you have enough volume to support that printer, the investment itself as well.
Yeah.
In those cases, they just buy custom transfers.
Yeah.
From us. We just launched. It's great product.
Woo-hoo.
Yeah. And so I think the DTF, and at the end of the day, the quality of the DTF transfers now are excellent.
Yeah.
So watch it get better.
Oh, that's such a good point.
Absolutely watch it get better.
Yeah, because the technology is still, I feel like, on an upward curve.
Yep.
Yeah.
For sure. For sure. And so if you are already seeing, just the difference between last year and this year.
Yes. Yeah.
And so watch it this year to next year, and then after, it's just going to get better and better and better. And then that will basically just increase adoption into that. Right?
Right.
And then you have the wave that we've been riding forever. And I think that's going to continue in terms of, end users, customers' appreciation for custom t-shirts in general and custom wares in general. I think we and our customers have plenty of runway to go, right? Besides that, our industry is cool in that there's a lot of tinkerers and there's a lot of R&D inside of this industry.
Yes.
And so it seemed like DTF just came out of nowhere.
It did.
Right?
It definitely caught me by surprise.
Yeah.
And to your point on like the quality increasing, I remember being at, I want to say it was like ISS. Back then it was called ISS 2019.
Yep.
Seeing a few of the transfers and a few of the printers and being a little impressed, but not sold. I wasn't sold.
Yeah.
Versus this past year. Or even, and I will talk about this right now, but like even like when we brought on our own and I printed myself transfers to be like, oh, okay, now I'm impressed.
Right.
Now I'm sold.
Right.
So yeah, I definitely get it. And I guess on that point, so Heat Press Nation, this year we brought on direct-to-film printers.
Yep.
And you kind of explain our philosophy and why we weren't first to that party. So this year we've brought on probably, I would say, more products than we've brought on in the previous, 3-4 years maybe?
It's been fun, right?
It's been exciting. It's been crazy. New products, new brands. You just mentioned True Print custom transfers, which is totally new for us, as a company, which is funny because I've been getting calls about, can you guys print this for me? Sorry, since I started. So so super exciting to be able to launch that. You guys could find that. We'll add a link or something. But man, we've had more new product launches this year than I feel like I can remember in the past previous years.
Yep.
Is that still exciting for you?
It is. Super exciting. Because, I enjoy when we launch a product, right? It's exciting, but there's so much work ahead of that.
Yes.
Even in the feasibility analysis of it, in studying, is this product right for our customers? Is this product right for us? Can we really truly support this product?
Back to that like original pragmatic approach that launched the company.
Yeah.
Jeez, yeah.
Yeah. And so like I enjoy that entire process, right? And then the launch is just kind of the, okay, we put all this work into this. We studied our hearts out and we developed our hearts out. Now let's see what happens. It's fun. Super fun.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Is there anything else? Because this is probably gonna, if you're watching this right now, you're probably watching this in like September, October. Is there anything else in 2025 that you want to tell us about? Is it something we should be looking forward to?
Should I be announcing stuff?
I don't know.
Yes, I would say there's a lot in the pipeline right now. I'm not at liberty to say now, but I'm excited about it.
We could bleep it too if you want to just tell me. Because believe it or not, you guys, I know a lot. I don't know everything. So
I feel like we're pretty open here, actually.
We are, but then there was the what was it? there was one of the printers, and I think honestly, I think it was just I was sick that day. When you guys had the big meeting about it, but I came back and they're like, "Oh, by the way, we're launching. I don't remember which brand. We're launching this," and I was like, "What?"
Yeah.
So I don't know. I've taken a few days. I've taken my vacation already, so I don't know. Maybe I missed a meeting.
Right. A lot of that analysis. You're right. There's certain teams that do that analysis, so we spend a lot of time on it. And then we pull people in when they need to know, because then we need, in your case, it's like, all right, hey, we decided again towards this. We need your help in building the content in your case. This team builds the research behind it. This team builds the listings behind it. This team builds the marketing behind it. And so, like, I guess, I don't know. I feel like I'm pretty open. Anyone that asks, I'll tell, right?
Then I'm going to ask you off camera.
Sure.
What are we
doing?
No, I'm just
Yeah.
All right, Jimmy, before we let you go, I have to ask on behalf of every entrepreneur out there, okay? Because I feel like you're the example of like the American dream, man.
Thanks.
Like you started your own business like from scratch, really.
Nice.
Not a lot of templates to follow, especially in our space, and did it, man.
Nice.
Had your failures, had your setbacks, had your hard times, and just kind of pressed through. So, like, if you could like go back in time to young Jimmy, had not yet started Heat Press Nation yet, to young Jimmy, and give him some like entrepreneurial advice, or maybe even someone at square one, someone at square -1 because they had their setbacks, right? Like,
sure.
Like, what advice would you give that person?
I don't know. This sounds cliche, but it's true. Enjoy every step of the journey, because every step of that journey, entrepreneurship by very nature is stressful.
Yeah.
That's just how it is. That's what you sign up for, right? And so if you let that stress get to you, it prevents you from taking the next step, right? And if it prevents you from taking the next step, then you can't take the next step after that, and the next step after that. And so, but then if you step back a little bit, because, everything comes in waves, right?
Yeah.
I think entrepreneurship, the stress comes in waves too. And so you can either get pummeled by that wave or you can ride it. And admittedly, I have been beat up along the way, right? And I've stressed out, and I've, months later, years later, you're like, that was exciting, right? Yeah. And so you almost have to know what you're signing up for. But I tell you what, if you sign up for it the right way and you're riding that wave instead of getting pummeled by it, man, it's incredibly rewarding on the other side in so many different aspects, right? We talk about people, we talk about customers, we talk about the business itself and the friendships that you build along the way, and with your colleagues, your vendors, your all of that, your customers, all of that. If you really step back, it's like, wow, I have a lot to be grateful for. I really, really do. And so it's so easy to, I don't know, to answer your question concisely, it's so easy to get caught up in the stress of the minutia.
Yeah.
But I think that can be said about a lot of things, like parenthood, for example.
Can we have a separate podcast about that?
Yeah, it's exactly. It's so many parallels.
Yeah, man.
Right? You're stressing about your kid, you know it.
Oh, dude, I have a 2-year-old, and he'll be 2 on Sunday.
Yep.
Yeah, and so by the time you see this, he's 2 now. Dude, jeez,
it's crazy.
Man. It is wild.
Yeah.
Wild ride.
Yeah.
Wow. But so incredibly rewarding.
Yep.
So incredibly taxing.
Yep.
And when you said waves, I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds about right for having a kid. Anyway, it's like
there's a lot of parallels, isn't it?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
I heard this on a TikTok once, or one of those YouTube shorts, that when you're having a hard time with your kids, or they're melting down or whatever, and you're all stressed out about it, right? Think of yourself 30 years later when they've grown up, and you would give anything to go back to that time.
I'm already there.
Yeah.
So my son's 2.
Yeah.
I already like want to go back to when he was like 1.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or 6 months. I would give anything to have the little, they call it the baby scrunch.
Yeah.
When you pick them up and their legs just scrunch up.
It's true.
Oh my gosh.
It's true.
Yeah, it's so
Business
true.
is so similar. It really is, you know? And so I would encourage our customers as they're going down their entrepreneurial journeys, try not to let it bother you.
Yeah.
Try not to let the little things bother you, because at the end of it, there's so much to appreciate.
Yeah.
Right? Hopefully that's helpful.
I honestly, like, nothing we can say can top that. It's such an excellent way to end this, man. I really do want to appreciate you for taking the time. I know we had to kind of wrangle you into this chair, but I'm so glad you're able to make the time. And I know there's such good information, such good nuggets, inspiration that I've gotten today. And I know our viewers and listeners appreciate that. So ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Customizing Culture Podcast. Once again, my name is Jared Barbosa. I'm your host. And today we had President and CEO of Heat Press Nation himself, Jimmy Lynn. Thank you again for coming by.
Appreciate you very much, man, for everything, really.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Adios, everybody.